All right, welcome to Align Trading. Going over today's SPY recap and live analysis before taking a look at what to be watching into tomorrow. So, first thing that I explained in the pre-market brief for Discord members today was to be paying attention to this larger head and shoulder structure that we were beginning to form right here, as you can see with this resistance on Friday. And we were looking to see whether or not we could form this inverse head and shoulder back above this level right here, which we did not. And you see how there is this inverse cup and handle as well right there that we get within this green for that beautiful head and shoulder. And then another key to this was the 5-day moving average that was below. As I've been mentioning for the last couple of videos, with this upper Bollinger, after we reached it, we would now be looking for this 5-day retest. Finally got that today, ended up turning it into resistance right here and got some continuation, even closing this gap that we talked about here as well. So a fairly straightforward day, but now we will go over the 1 minute chart and take a look at the intraday analysis and some of the trades. So now here on the 1 minute chart, going over the microstructure and algorithms. As you can see here in the morning, we started forming this blue and yellow controlled selling algorithm that you can see right here. However, we were unable to form this head and shoulder and close this cup back at that high of day and then begin to break out higher. And you see how we start getting weaker within this white algo as well. With that tapering, you see this head and shoulder beginning to form right there, as well as this inverse cup and handle once again right within that white algo. So there is the first trade of the day. And again, like we talked about with this 5-day moving average, it was just below right here. And that was our initial target there. So with reaching this 5-day moving average, I explained that you could now be watching for it to turn into resistance and we could head down even lower right towards that gap that was unfilled. And you see how we start forming that head and shoulder right off of that 5-day. We get that move down again. Sure, it retraces, but again, could not get back above that 5-day. And there is another head and shoulder, and you see how this white is just continuing to work on the way down here. Like I also explained, what you would have wanted to see if you were looking for a reversal. Maybe you thought that this was going to bounce off of the 5-day. Well, you have to see the structure forming here, and we never formed that right shoulder and continued grabbing this liquidity on the way up. Even something like that, which never did form. With the 5-day as well, I explained on the 30-minute chart, right? Pay attention to this level. Was that previous low just before grabbing this liquidity right here, which we were looking for, and then ultimately, right, to close that inverse cup. And we did, we grabbed that liquidity on the way down, formed the resistance at the 5-day, and you see how we got that move within the orange selling continuation. Now, after grabbing that liquidity and forming this inverse cup, I explained pay attention if we do get that retrace back to this 5-day moving average right here before forming another head and shoulder, and you can see how that forms. But I also explained, if we want to reverse, that is fine, but watch for us to regain this 5-day, form support, and then we can continue moving back up. We would also want to have regained this level right there, and you can see it's right where we rejected from at the retracement level on the 1 minute chart that you can see right here. So as we continued moving down on this 1 minute chart, I explained you have to be continuing to watch for this white right here if we want to go lower and close that gap that we talked about that was just down here. However, for this moment, it remained as a partially filled gap close because you can see we start tapering right here and forming that inverse head and shoulder like I explained, but we were unable to regain that 5-day moving average and continue grabbing this liquidity right here. So you see that cup close, but we are just unable to get this breakout, even though we formed that support, it looks like, for a second, just unable to break out of this pink algo that starts to form. Now with this pink algo, you can see how I'm explaining the structure you have to be watching here. It looked like we were starting to taper and watching this inverse cup right here. So watch for that handle. You can see how it starts to form. However, we start to bounce at that level right there, cannot continue closing it to this level, and then ultimately the low of day like I talked about. But if you were looking for this to break out above, you also had to be looking for this inverse head and shoulder starting to form. We close that cup, right? But when it comes time for this handle within blue and yellow, we are unable to form that. You see that beautiful head and shoulder that starts to form here as well. You even have this inverse cup and handle within the white, and then closing that inverse cup at this level like I talked about right here. And then you would want to be seeing a handle and then another handle to head down. So with us not being able to form that handle right here, same thing, even if you're looking to short it right there, got to be seeing the structure in order to, even if we close another inverse cup. But with this tapering right here as well in the blue, you see how we start to form that inverse head and shoulder, and then we close that cup right back to this level again. And as I explained, right, if we are able to form support here, can look for that 5-day moving average retest and grabbing that liquidity that we talked about here earlier as well. So finally closing that cup back to the 5-day. Now with us revisiting that 5-day as well, I talked about on the 30-minute chart you would be wanting to see, right, that inverse head and shoulder right there, regaining this level. Otherwise, we could look for that head and shoulder to start to form right here and continue going towards that target of closing this gap. And you see how it beautifully does that at the end of the day. So I personally called it a day after this move back up to the 5-day moving average right there. But I did explain that if you were going to see continuation, watch for this handle and that regain of the 5-day along with that level. And we could continue moving back up. Otherwise, right, look for this head and shoulder to form right here and grabbing that liquidity on the way back down. And you see how that beautiful inverse cup and handle starts to form, as well as this head and shoulder, similar to this right here. So a very good rejection if you took this, right? We close that cup, another head and shoulder right there, and then back down to this level, another inverse cup. You see that beautiful head and shoulder, and there is that move down. We close the cup at the low of day now, and then again, you're looking for that handle that we talked about earlier for that head and shoulder, and there is some more continuation. It is a chop within this blue, but we are moving lower. It's the same thing we've been doing all day. But now it is time to go over what to be watching into tomorrow. So we are still looking for this head and shoulder continuation. If we can remain below this 5-day like we did here, forming that resistance, and if so, we have now closed the gap. We can look to grab this liquidity right here, closing the inverse cup at this level, and then from there we want to see, a handle building before potentially moving down lower. And this is where we will talk about the 20-day, where our final target would be for this inverse cup. You can see here on the daily, if we turn this to resistance, we will retest this 20-day, which is starting to flatten out. It's the same thing right here. We get this upper Bollinger retest. We turn the 5-day to resistance, and we get that 20-day moving average retest. And if that does occur, right, we can look for it to just be a pullback, and we're back into the uptrend, maybe a Santa rally. Otherwise, right, at that point, you are then looking for this inverse cup that has closed at the 20. If we turn that to resistance, we will then head to the bottom Bollinger. And again, that's a larger inverse cup here at another support level. So Now, in the case we do head back up, we need to see us regaining this 5-day moving average right here. So if we do want to defend this liquidity right here, watch for that regain. Otherwise, right, we are going to look for that inverse cup to close. And then at that point, if we want to form some sort of inverse head and shoulder again, right, you can look for that and that 5-day regain. But until that point, we are looking for this move to the downside. And as long as that 5-day is resistance, we will be looking for this 20-day retest. Just keep in mind that CPI and PPI are this Wednesday and Thursday, and that could give us something to head lower, or maybe we get some sort of news and there is a reversal and we regain that 5-day once again. But that is all I have for this video, so thank you everyone for watching, and I will see members in the morning.